02, Into the Deadlands, A Tale of Curses and Monsters. Following the tumultuous events of their previous escapade, the trio of adventurers, Jim Bob the Clown, Rabbit's Foot the Weaver, and Jack the Boy the Slide, found themselves thrust into the spotlight of Doskvol's underworld. Captain Marik Ishtar, burning with a desire for retribution over their audacious theft of the golden rod, relentlessly pursued them. Rumors of their newfound notoriety swirled through the streets, forcing them to seek refuge in the shadows. They decided to settle in an abandoned house south of Crow's Foot, a dilapidated structure with a vast basement and underground area that held promise as a base of operations. As Jack surveyed their new hideout, he couldn't help but think, this place could be more than just a temporary refuge. With some work, it could be our stronghold. Their immediate concern, however, was laying low and securing funds. They needed money, and they needed to stay out of the spotlight. It was during this tense respite that a mysterious offer came from Baszo Baz, a well-known magnate who had previously dealt with Jack. Baszo sought their aid in locating his missing nephew, Orlan Baz. Rumors whispered that Orlan had ventured into the treacherous depths of the Deadlands, a foreboding wilderness teeming with legends of mythical beasts and ancient curses. The trio was tasked with unraveling the mystery of his disappearance and, if possible, bringing him safely home. One evening, as they gathered around a flickering candle in the basement, Jim Bob voiced his concerns. "I don't trust this Baszo Baz character. Who's to say this isn't another trap?" Rabbit's Foot, his eyes reflecting the candlelight, shook his head. "It's a risk, but we need the money. Besides, finding this kid could earn us some powerful allies." Jack, leaning against a crumbling wall, nodded. "Rabbit's right. We need to rebuild, and this job could be our ticket to better resources. Plus, the Deadlands are dangerous, but they offer cover from Ishtar's goons." Jim Bob sighed, rubbing his temples. "Fine, but we go in prepared. No more surprises." With their decision made, they embraced the guise of intrepid researchers on a quest to study the legendary creatures said to inhabit the Deadlands. Under the cover of darkness, they set out, their senses attuned to the whispers of the wilderness and the secrets it held. As they ventured deeper into the Deadlands, the landscape became increasingly wild and untamed. Gnarled trees with twisted branches loomed overhead, their shadows dancing ominously in the moonlight. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, and the occasional distant howl sent shivers down their spines. "Keep your eyes peeled," Jack whispered, his hand resting on the hilt of his dagger. "This place is crawling with dangers, both natural and unnatural." Rabbit's Foot nodded, his fingers twitching as he felt the subtle currents of luck swirling around them. "Stay close. We'll be fine as long as we stick together." Their journey took a darker turn when they stumbled upon an abandoned camp. The remnants of a fire still smoldered, casting eerie shadows on the surrounding trees. "Looks like someone was here recently," Jim Bob muttered, kicking at the ashes. "But where are they now?" A rustling sound from the shadows caught their attention. Jack drew his dagger, and Rabbit's Foot readied his weapon. "Who's there?" Jack called out, his voice steady despite the tension. From the darkness, they heard the unmistakable sound of an arrow flying through the air. It struck the ground in front of Rabbit's Foot with a dull thud, sending a shiver of alarm through the group. It was a warning shot. "Hold up!" Jim Bob shouted, raising his hands instinctively. "We don't want any trouble." A figure emerged from the shadows, seemingly homeless, with a crossbow aimed directly at them. His clothes were tattered, and his eyes were wild, but there was a sharp intelligence behind his gaze. "What are you doing here?" the man demanded. "And why are you going through my things?" Jack stepped forward cautiously, his hands also raised. "We're not here to steal from you," he said calmly. "We're looking for someone. Orlan Baz. Do you know him?" The man's grip on the crossbow tightened. "Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Why should I care?" Rabbit's Foot interjected, his voice steady. "Because we need your help." This land is dangerous, and you seem to know it well. If you guide us, we can make it worth your while. The man eyed them suspiciously. What's in it for me? Jim Bob chimed in, trying to sound persuasive. We have food, supplies, and a safe place to rest for the night. Help us, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. After a tense moment, the man's posture relaxed slightly. All right, he said, lowering the crossbow. Name's Garrick. I'll help you, but if you try anything, you're dead. The group breathed a collective sigh of relief. Thank you, Garrick, Jack said, extending his hand. Garrick hesitated before shaking it briefly. As they continued their journey, Garrick's knowledge of the land and its dangers proved invaluable. He guided them through treacherous terrain, pointing out hidden pitfalls and natural traps that could have easily claimed their lives. Yet, even with their newfound ally, the shadow of danger hung over them like a shroud. That night, they made camp inside a cave they found in the forest. The entrance was narrow, but it opened into a spacious chamber that offered some protection from the elements. They set up a small fire, its flickering light casting eerie shadows on the cave walls. Jim Bob glanced around nervously. This place gives me the creeps. Rabbit's Foot nodded, his eyes scanning the darkness beyond the firelight. We need to stay vigilant. There's something out there, watching us. As they settled in for the night, the sound of rustling leaves and snapping twigs echoed through the forest. They were being stalked by a monstrous beast, but despite their efforts, they never managed to catch a glimpse of it. The tension was palpable, each creak and groan of the forest sending their hearts racing. Jack couldn't sleep. He lay awake, listening to the sounds of the night and the steady breathing of his companions. His mind raced with thoughts of Orlan Baz and the mysterious creature that haunted their steps. What have we gotten ourselves into, he wondered silently. Morning came, and with it a renewed sense of determination. They pressed onward, overcoming obstacles and challenges with a blend of resourcefulness and grit. Garrick led them through dense underbrush and across treacherous ravines, always one step ahead of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. Their journey reached its zenith when they stumbled upon a sprawling campsite. The eerie silence betrayed the presence of secrets lurking beneath the surface. Tents were overturned, and remnants of a struggle were evident. In the center of the camp, they found a battered diary, its pages stained and worn. Jack picked it up carefully, flipping through the pages. This must be Orlan's, he said, reading aloud. He writes about a terrible curse, something that tormented his soul. Rabbit's Foot leaned in, his brow furrowed. A curse? What kind of curse? Jim Bob's face paled as he listened. He says he became a beast, Jack continued. He isolated himself to protect those he cared about. Could he be the creature that stalked us last night? Garrick's eyes widened with realization. If that's true, we're in more danger than we thought. This is where I leave, and Garrick hurried off. The group fell silent, the weight of their discovery sinking in. They had come to find Orlan Baz, but they had uncovered something far more sinister. The man they sought was cursed, a beast driven to madness and isolation. Jim Bob broke the silence. We can't leave him like this. We have to help him. Jack nodded, determination in his eyes. Agreed. We need to find him and break this curse, the pay will be great if we do. As the trio pored over the battered diary and scoured the abandoned campsite for more clues, Garrick, their erstwhile guide, made a hasty decision. With a gruff farewell and a muttered curse about the dangers of the Deadlands, he disappeared into the forest, leaving Jack, Rabbit's Foot, and Jim Bob to face the perilous journey alone. The forest around them grew quiet, the ominous silence broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant cries of unseen creatures. It was then that the ground trembled beneath their feet, and the underbrush parted to reveal a monstrous minotaur, a grotesque amalgamation of man and bull. Its eyes glowed with an eerie yellow light, and its powerful hooves stomped furiously as it bellowed, ready to charge. Get down! Jack shouted as he spotted the beast's approach. The Minotaur's roar was deafening as it charged, its muscular frame hurtling toward them with terrifying speed. Jack barely had time to react, but Rabbit's foot, ever alert, seized the moment. With a swift and decisive movement, Rabbit's foot hurled himself in front of Jack. "Duck!" he yelled, pulling Jack out of the way as the Minotaur's horns grazed where Jack had been standing. The impact sent a tremor through the ground, and Jim Bob, caught off guard, was flung against a tree. He groaned in pain, clutching his side where a gash had opened from the collision. "Jim Bob!" Rabbit's foot shouted, concern etched into his face as he looked back at his injured comrade. But there was no time to dwell on injuries. The Minotaur turned, its rage unabated, and it charged again, its horns lowered menacingly. Jack, quick to adapt, tried to reason with the beast, hoping to appeal to whatever sanity might still reside within. "We don't want to fight you. We're here to help." But the Minotaur's roar drowned out Jack's words, and it lunged at them once more. It was clear that reason would not sway this creature. Rabbit's foot, thinking quickly, noticed the uneven terrain beneath the beast's hooves. With a deft move, he grabbed a rope from their supplies and set a trap, strategically placing it in the path of the charging Minotaur. As the beast barreled forward, its hooves caught the rope, causing it to stumble and crash to the ground with a thunderous thud. It roared in frustration and struggled to rise, but the trap had bought them crucial moments. Their respite, however, was short-lived. From the darkened sky above, another threat emerged, a colossal creature with the body of a man and the wings of a bat. It descended with an eerie grace, its bat-like screeches filling the air as it landed heavily, its eyes fixed on the trio with an insatiable hunger. "We've got company," Jack shouted as he and Rabbit's foot scrambled to defend themselves. The bat creature's massive wings unfurled, casting an ominous shadow over the group. The two beasts, Minotaur and Bat, engaged the trio in a frenetic battle. Jim Bob, though wounded, managed to draw the Minotaur's attention, using a combination of distraction and his remaining strength to keep it at bay. Rabbit's foot darted around, using his agility to avoid the Minotaur's charges and using his quick reflexes to try and land precise strikes. Jack, meanwhile, tried to maneuver around the bat creature, using his spirit charm to tap into its power. As the bat beast screeched and swung its claws, Jack held the charm high, focusing its energy. The charm glowed with an ethereal light, and Jack began to speak in a calm, persuasive tone. "Listen to me," Jack said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I know you're in pain. We don't have to be enemies. There's more to this than just fighting." The bat creature hesitated, its movements slowing as it seemed to grapple with the emotions Jack's words stirred. The charm's power allowed Jack to tap into the beast's human side, revealing glimpses of a tormented soul trapped within the monstrous form. Simultaneously, Rabbit's foot, using his nimble movements, managed to outmaneuver the Minotaur, striking at its vulnerable spots and creating openings. The Minotaur's fury only seemed to intensify, but Rabbit's foot's persistence began to wear it down. With a final, desperate plea, Jack appealed to the bat creature. "You don't have to suffer like this. We can help you find peace." The bat creature's eyes softened as it looked at Jack, a flicker of recognition breaking through its feral rage. Jack's words and the charm's power seemed to resonate with the creature. It hesitated, then slowly backed away, its wings folding as it seemed to consider the offer of peace. The Minotaur, too, seemed to struggle with its inner turmoil. The fight had taken its toll, and Rabbit's foot's persistent efforts had made an impact. Jack approached the Minotaur cautiously, his voice soothing as he continued to speak to the creature. "Hope is not lost," Jack said, his tone gentle. "There's a chance for redemption. Let us help you." The Minotaur's rage subsided, and it looked at Jack with weary eyes. It was clear that the creature was torn between its primal instincts and the fragments of its human soul. After what felt like an eternity, both beasts seemed to come to a tenuous truce. The bat creature, with a final, mournful cry, took to the skies, disappearing into the darkness. The Minotaur, battered and weary, slowly retreated to the shadows, leaving the trio in a stunned silence. Jim Bob, still recovering from his injuries, managed a pained grin. Well, that was one hell of a fight. Rabbit's Foot, catching his breath, nodded in agreement. We survived. But we need to figure out which of those beasts was Orlan. Jack, holding the spirit charm tightly, looked at the diary. The diary mentioned a curse, a transformation. We need to find more clues to understand what Orlan's curse really is. The trio, now reeling from their harrowing battle with the Minotaur and the bat creature, took up the pursuit once more, shadows blending seamlessly into the darkness of the Deadlands. Their steps were measured and deliberate, as they followed the distinctive, heavy tread of the Minotaur through the tangled forest. The night air was thick with a palpable tension, the ominous silence punctuated only by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. Jack, his eyes narrowed with determination, led the way. His spirit charm, still glowing faintly, was a beacon of hope and guidance. That's him, Jack said, his voice a mix of relief and apprehension. That's Orlan Baz. Rabbit's Foot, sensing the urgency in Jack's voice, nodded grimly. Let's approach him carefully. We need to show him we mean no harm. The Minotaur lumbered through the darkened forest, its movements a combination of brute strength and wearied sorrow. The trio, now adept at stealth, followed the beast until it paused at a secluded clearing. The Minotaur seemed to be more agitated now, its roars echoing through the forest. Jack approached slowly, his charm held high, casting a soothing light. Orlan, Jack called out softly, his voice steady despite the lingering fear. We're here to help you. We've seen the truth, and we know you're trapped. The Minotaur's eyes, though fierce, were clouded with anguish. It paused, its breath coming in ragged gasps. Inside the beast's gaze, Jack glimpsed the human torment that lay beneath the surface. He continued to speak, his words imbued with empathy. Please, don't fight us. We want to help you break free from this curse. Orlan's voice emerged, weak and full of despair. Just end it. I can't bear this agony any longer. Please, kill me. Rabbit's Foot, listening intently, felt a surge of determination. He stepped forward, his gaze locked on the suffering creature. We can't give up on you, Orlan. I promise you, there's still hope. Excusing himself from the group, Rabbit's Foot moved to the edge of the clearing, where he retrieved a cursed compass from his pack. The compass was an ancient artifact, its metal tarnished and its surface engraved with runic symbols that pulsed with a faint, eerie glow. Holding the compass tightly, Rabbit began a small ritual, invoking the demon he had encountered in his past dealings. The air around him grew colder as Rabbit began to chant, his voice reverberating through the clearing. The shadows seemed to shift and coalesce, and a low, sinister growl emerged from the darkness. Samayas, the demon he had bargained with before, materialized with a wisp of smoky darkness, his form both intimidating and majestic. Samaya's voice, deep and resonant, filled the clearing. So, Rabbit's Foot, we meet again. What is it you seek? Rabbit's Foot, trying to keep his composure, responded with a mixture of respect and urgency. Samayas, I need a cure for Orlan Baz. The man is cursed, trapped in the form of a beast. You're the only one with the power to save him. Samaya's eyes, glowing like embers, fixed on Rabbit. You know the price of my aid, Rabbit. My terms are not easily met. Are you prepared to honor your end of our bargain? I am, Rabbit said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. Just tell me what you need. Samaya's form shifted, and he leaned closer, his presence almost overwhelming. The cure will come at a cost, one that will demand a sacrifice in the future. You will not know the moment, but you will be bound by our agreement. Rabbit hesitated for a heartbeat, then nodded resolutely. I accept. Give me the cure. A dark, swirling mist coalesced in Samaya's hand, forming a vial of shimmering liquid. This is the antidote, Samaya said, his tone almost dismissive. Use it wisely. With the vial in hand, Rabbit's foot returned to the group. They carefully administered the cure to Orlan Baz, who, after a tense moment, began to revert to his human form. The transformation was slow but remarkable, and soon Orlan lay on the ground, exhausted but human once more. "Thank you," Orlan whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I thought I was lost forever." The trio guided Orlan back to Doskvol, where they delivered him to his worried uncle, Baszo Baz. The magnate, deeply grateful, offered them his thanks and promised his continued support. As the days passed and the excitement of their success settled into a quieter routine, Rabbit's foot found himself alone, reflecting on the events. The cure had worked, and Orlan was safe, but Rabbit couldn't shake the weight of his deal with Samaya's. The thought of the future price haunted him, a shadow lurking in the corners of his mind. Standing in the dimly lit room of their temporary hideout, Rabbit's foot looked out into the night. The city below seemed peaceful, but he knew that his own future was anything but. "What will it cost me?" Rabbit muttered to himself, his voice barely audible. "What kind of price will Samaya's demand?" He turned away from the window, his thoughts heavy with uncertainty. The success of their mission had brought them allies and satisfaction, but the looming debt to Samaya's remained a dark cloud over his future. As he prepared for another day in Doskvol's complex web of intrigue, Rabbit's foot knew that while he had fulfilled his oath and helped Orlan, the true test of his resolve would come with the Recco.